Hello, my name is Małgorzata Kurzępa. I'm a founder and director of Fair House Investments, the company which invests in properties in UK for over 7 years now. It's almost 8, but still 7 and over 10 years altogether because I came from Poland and I started my journey with investment properties in Poland. Now I continue it in UK. Every Sunday afternoon, I'm coming to you with another subject, something about investing in properties. Today, I wanted to tell you about the difference or maybe similarities in a process of investing in a process of buying your own property, the property you would live in, and the investment property. So there are some differences. There are many similarities. I would rather say there are more similarities than differences, but there are some aspects we have to take under consideration when we, even if we have an experience, because we already bought our residential property. Now we want to buy an investment one, and still some differences which you have to take under consideration. So first of all, decision about the purchase and the goal of our investment. The second is our credibility to get a mortgage, so our credit score. Third thing, the cash we need for the purchase, for the investment. The property itself, where it's located, how big it is, how nice it is, things like this. Is it worth to buy? How do we count ROI, strategies like no money down or high cash flow? The expenses of the refurbishment, the mortgage, help to buy and shared ownership schemes, broker, how to cooperate and when to cooperate with a broker, solicitors or conveyancers, how do we cooperate with them, and exchange completion when we finalize the purchase, how does it look like in both aspects, buying for ourselves or buying as an investment. So first aspect, a decision about the purchase and the goal of our investment. So if we buy for ourselves, of course, we want to buy the home. We're looking for the home, so the goal is quite obvious, and we don't really count the expenses. But the truth is that we should take the expenses under consideration. We should take the same aspect as when we buy the investment property, because remember that if somehow you would be forced to sell your property, for example, because you want to move to another place, if your current property, for example, increase in value, when you sell it, you would be automatically at the better position to buy the second one. So I understand that if you buy for your own, you don't really think that if it's well located, or there is good. Is this a good place for commuters? Is it any company that hire people nearby? But if you can, please take it under consideration, because it could be important when you would be ready to sell. Of course, if we talk about the investment property, it's completely different story. Usually there are two strategies. One is investing. So you want to build your portfolio, you're ready to buy many properties, so you need a proper strategy, you need a business plan. Usually I strongly advise you to start your SPV, so special purpose vehicle, which is usually a limited company, which would be an investment company, and it would be focused, or it would be designed only to invest in properties. The difference is if you have a trading company and you want to buy a property under the name of your trading company. I strongly advise you, do not do it. If you want to know why exactly, please talk to your accountant, because they would be able to advise you why there is a difference, and why it's better to buy under the investment company rather than trading company. There would be differences in getting a mortgage later, because most of the lenders prefer to lend to investment company rather than to trading company. The second thing is when someone is not really ready to invest, or someone doesn't really want to treat the property as an it's still an extra source of extra income. But for example, you have too much cash. You spend less than you earn, and you have extra cash, and you think, what can I do? You have 30, 40, 50,000 pounds on your account, and you're thinking, what can I do with that amount of money? Of course, the first thought you have is just to invest in a property. So people like this usually buy 1 or 2, maybe 3 properties. They don't treat it like a proper investing business. They just treat it more like the location of their capital. So too much cash, one option. Second thing, sometimes people buy the property because they have teenager kids, and they think, maybe when my child will go to start the university, he or she will have a place to stay, or maybe even the place for an early adult life. And the third thing, sometimes people buy the properties because they would like to have an extra income when they retired. So they still want to continue their current career, whatever they're doing. The property is just an extra income, versus the first situation I told you, when we want to build a portfolio and when we want to build a proper investing business. So yeah, the goal of the purchase. The second thing is our credit score and how much we can borrow. So if you want to buy a residential property, which would be your home, you could borrow 3-5 times your annual income. So if you earn 20,000 pounds per year, then you can borrow around between 80 and 100,000 pounds. This would be the amount of money you can borrow. So if you want to buy the property which costs 120, it's still fine. You just put 20,000 of deposit. If you want to buy a property which costs 200,000, you can still buy it. But in this situation, you have to take under consideration that you will be forced to put a higher deposit. In this case, if you could only borrow 100,000, probably you have to put another 100,000 as a deposit in cash. If you considering buying an investment property, most of the lender expect that your annual income would be between 20 and 25,000 pounds. If you're buying with your spouse, life partner, it would be at least 30,000 pounds for 2 people. Cash. When you buy the residential property, you have to remember that you need 10% of cash for the deposit. But there would be also some extra expenses, which would be stamp duty for first-time buyers, slightly lower. The cost of broker and the conveyancer, also quite good prices for first-time buyers or when you purchase a residential property. And the renovation, and here there is no ceiling. You can renovate, you can spend as much as you want for your property, but you have to take it under consideration, put it in your budget first. If you purchase the buy-to-let property, the investment property, again, the deposit is higher, between 20 and 25% of the value of the property, of the price of the property. The expenses around the purchase, so stamp duty, at least 3% more than if you buy the residential property. So, excuse me. The broker and conveyancer cost would be higher also. And the last is the renovation. refurbishment, and in this case you would rather keep it low, the expenses, or reasonable, because you have to remember you buy the property to make you money. Yes, so this, it should be a business. It's not a pleasure, it's not fun, it should be a business. This is something that you should put some money in and get more money out, so keep it in mind. The property itself. If you buy a residential property, you have to take under consideration all family members. Especially if you have little kids, you have to remember that they need good school, or you want to keep them in the school they are now. And another thing is that as long as you can travel to work, it would be difficult to travel with a child. So definitely, the house, your new house should be located nearby the proper school. If you are a young family, leave a little bit of space for the moment if your family take it under consideration that your family could increase in size. So keep it in mind. Leave a little bit of an extra space for it. Remember about front yard or parking space, loft space, or space for gathering your things. So these are normal things. If we buy investment property, we rather think about our tenants. So tenants, location, and the strategy would be like a triangle of features which should work together. If your tenants would be white collars, they would need another location than if your tenants would be students. Also, your strategy, if this is service apartment, it would be probably located somewhere centrally or next to football stadium or something like this, while single let could be easily located in a quiet neighborhood, yeah, because this is what the tenants would expect. How do we count? How do we assess if the property is worth to invest in? If you're buying your own home, your own house, you don't really count it. But as I mentioned before, it's worth to count it's worth to count how much it's worth now, how much you have to spend for it, and how much it would be worth in a near or even further away future. Because as I mentioned, when you would be selling your residential property, the more you get for it, the better start you will have to buy a new one. If we talk about the investment property, of course, the main aspect I'm taking under consideration is ROI. So I count how much income I will have annually, multiply by 100%. So multiply by 100% and divided by invested cash. And for me, 8%, 9% is absolutely fine. It's something if I got 8%, it's just really, really good. No money down. This is one of the strategies, which is its ideal situation. When you buy the property, you refurbish it, you remortgage it, and there is no money down. There is no money left in the deal, so you get all your cash you invested. But this is the perfect situation, and it doesn't happen often. Of course, we trying to achieve such a situation, but it's achievable only or mostly with cheap properties. And because I'm trying to keep the value of my properties at rather mid level, not very, very cheap, because I don't want to have very cheap tenants because they are usually problematic. So my goal are rather tenants like myself, who have a stable income, but they also have some expectations towards the property. So my properties are not extremely cheap, So no money down is just not possible to achieve. So in my opinion, if it would be between 12 and 15,000 pounds left in the deal, it's absolutely great, and it's really it's fine for me. The third thing some of investors are taking under consideration is the high cash flow. So high cash flow versus capital gain is like when you invest in a property which brings you plenty of money every month, compared to the property which maybe brings you a small amount of money every month, because when you count the rental income and you pay the mortgage from it, there is very small margin. But for example, if you keep the property for 10-20 years, it would increase in value, so you will have a capital gain. But now when I'm talking about the cash flow, is usually considered by the investors who wants to fast replace the current income from current work by the income from property. So they want to resign of their work and daily work and move to properties only, or only have passive income and do something completely different, for example, or even stay in that job but just have passive income. Anyway, these people taking under consideration the high cash flow. For me, if the cash for me, the minimum cash flow is £350 per month. If this is what I achieve, it's great. Of course, I'm talking about single let. The refurbishment expenses. If you buy the residential property, you refurbish for yourself. So usually you put all the features you always wanted to have in your house. If you haven't them in a previous house, or the opposite, you had them and you can't imagine your life without it, like a jacuzzi, or I don't know, sauna, or fireplace. I don't have a fireplace, you can see there. It was a fireplace, but I built it bit over it, so there's no fireplace now. I don't really miss it, but you know, maybe someone always dreamed about fireplace and they definitely want to have one. If we talk about the buy-to-let property, investment property, of course you taking under consideration the most efficient materials and features. So of course you don't buy cheap, because you remember that cheap means something that could break easy. So you buying good materials. Sometimes you hire a designer to make everything nice for the previous tenants, especially at the beginning. Remember that if you buy cheap materials or cheap things, they break very easy, and every problem with the property is an extra expense for you. So you don't want it. You'd rather spend something more on refurbishment, but have a peace of mind later. The mortgage. For residential mortgage, you usually put 10% of deposit and you take a mortgage for 90% of the property value. There are some restrictions for people who are self-employed, but in general, there is a good selection of mortgages at the market. You can easy get one, even find a mortgage by yourself. If we're talking about the investment property and investment mortgage, the deposit is usually 25%, so you're taking 75% of the mortgage. Again, there are plenty of lenders, but the interest is slightly higher of course for investment mortgages. And sometimes, as I mentioned, you should use SPV, special purpose vehicle, set a new limited company or limited company which would be devoted to investment only. Schemes like Help to Buy and shared ownership are designed to help first-time buyers. So they are only for people who buy residential properties. And the first one, Help to Buy, is sponsored by the government. The second one, shared ownership, is connected to the local council. So if you consider one or the other, please check online under which circumstances you can apply for them. they are really good for some people. Again, you should speak to an expert first. The broker. Oh, I've got so many questions about the broker. Brokers, you wouldn't believe. And I truly think that if you have a good financial situation and it's straightforward, you are employed, you've been in UK for over 2 years, you have a good history, good credit history, you have no unpaid tickets, no unpaid credit cards, anything like this. It's really straightforward. You can go online to money saving experts. They have Mortgage Best Buy file there, part there, and you can easily find a mortgage for yourself. However, if your financial situation is not that straightforward, or you looking for investment mortgage, buy-to-let mortgage, then definitely you should use a broker. And believe me, plenty of people think that they could save money on brokers. These 500 or 600 pounds, it's just not worth it. First of all, he could save you money. He or she, the broker, could save you money. And the second thing, they could save you plenty of time and plenty of headache. So I strongly advise you to use a broker. Solicitor, conveyancer. Every time you use a conveyancer, you're selling, you're buying, residential, buy-to-let, doesn't matter. It's not mandatory, but it's you dealing with a thing, the property, which has extremely high value. Buying or selling the property is probably one of the most valuable transaction in your life. So don't even think about doing it by yourself. Just hire the conveyancer, the solicitor who will do it for you. Pay them whatever they want. Try to find a reasonable price, but remember, don't even think about doing it by yourself. It is possible, but I strongly advise you to use an expert to do it. And the last thing is exchange and completion. There is no difference between residential and buy-to-let property. In each case, you have to buy the insurance for your property before exchange of contracts. Exchange and completion is done by solicitors. They do it between each other. You're not involved physically. You don't have to be in an office. You just sign the documents, you send them over, and it's done. They do it between themselves, and that's it. So these are some similarities and some differences between buying residential or investment property. But as you said, I think there is much more. There are plenty of things are very similar. There are only a few differences. Of course, you have to take them under consideration, but it's not a crazy process if you have already purchased your property before. Probably, believe me, the second one would be easier because there would be no unknown elements there, and most of the processes you would be familiar to, so it would be much easier and much less stressful. So good luck in your investment, or good luck in buying your own property. And I see you next Sunday, and I will tell you about something new. It was Małgorzata Kurzępa, Fair House Investments. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful Sunday.